proposal of policy 707. It was posted today. It is a draft. The board is going to talk about the draft that we are proposing. There may be things the board wants to discuss in the public. And then after we are all done with that, we'll have public comment. So you guys know. We're allowing until 7 o'clock until the next meeting. So if the board discussion is only 3 minutes, then we'll have public comment until 7, just so you guys understand. So we do have a revised policy in front of us. You want to shoot the highlights off there, Dr. Bruce?
Yeah, I know the board has been working on this for a while. The first thing I'll call your attention to is on page 2 of 8, Class C. You know, the board had a lot of discussion about what Class C would look like. And it's basically individuals that are nonprofit status, so within our borders, obviously. And prior to first use, it's demonstrating that at least 75% of its active membership or participants are residents of the Mars area schools. So I know individuals were contacting board members and wanting special consideration for those organizations that are local. You'll see in blue on page 2 of 8, scheduling priority will be given by class, with Class A having first priority, Class B second, Class C third, Class D obviously being the lowest. And I won't read through this because I know what most people are looking at is the fee structure. So if you go to the very end of the document, again, this is just a draft to get the board talking. So, what's that? Page 8. This would be something. In the event an individual or community group violates the policy or terms under the which permission is granted to use the facilities, that individual or community group forfeits the right to submit future requests and use school district property unless otherwise decided by the board, and may be charged a penalty of $500. What that is basically for, when the board was talking about Class C, folks claiming that they have 75% or more, that's a protection on the district that folks are going to say that to get a reduced rate, and then they end up being a Class D. So that's just a protection on the district. So they talked about, in that meeting, the board talked about that a fee could be charged and people could actually forfeit future requests being considered. So what most folks are probably interested in is if you go back to the facilities rental fee schedule, what was really taking a strong look at was Class C. I know our business office did a very thorough analysis, and I'm speaking to the board. Board members can chime in. During the conversation that the board was having with this, they certainly don't want to charge and make a profit. The goal was to try to charge to recoup any fees that maybe the district may be expending for those groups. So there was an analysis done by sport from the various organizations. So if you look at the map, and again, I'm focusing in on Class C, because that seems to be where most of the concern was. It would be $35 an hour for the athletic complex. Stadium lights, if needed, would be $50 an hour. Concession stand 0 or 120. You look at baseball fields, it was high, and then the first version of this, it was reduced, and then it was reduced again under this current, again, I keep saying draft and proposal because the board will have to discuss. The baseball field on Davidson Road would go down to $15 an hour for Class C. Obviously, basketball courts 0. Multi-purpose field, $35 an hour. Parking lots, 10. Another change, soccer fields 1 and 2 on 3 Degree Road would go from $35 an hour to $15 an hour. The softball fields grass, again, went from $35 to $15 an hour. And then the turf field, obviously, which requires a little more upkeep maintenance, would be $25 an hour. When you go to the indoor facilities, Class C, again, that's 75% of the individuals being Mars residents. Cafeteria commons kitchen would be $30 an hour. Classroom conference room would go down to $10 an hour. Gymnasium, $30 an hour, and the large group at the high school would be $20 an hour. Again, if you look at the Class C, again, nonprofit, community-based organizations and groups residents, in order to qualify, they need to be nonprofit, prior to first usage, again, provide evidence that at least 75% of the active membership and our participants are residents. Something I'll call your attention to, it says hourly rates or usage fees are applied when school is in session. There is no charge for any activities occurring before 6 o'clock on weekdays. Say, for example, the outside group wants to have a sign up or something like that. We're just recommending no charge before 6 o'clock on weekday hours. The last piece is very important for those that use the facilities the most, and you'll see it in blue. An hourly rate discount of 50% will be applied to rental fees charged to an organization accumulating a minimum of 100 hours of facility rental hours during the course of the school year, July to June. Scheduling priority will be given to classes A, B, and C. So I know the conversation that the board had was trying to recognize those groups that are on our fields or using our facilities constantly. They'll get a reduced rate, 50% cut on those rates that we talked about. Personnel fees, if you look at there's additional personnel fees, not many of those things have changed. Again, the business office did an analysis. Custodian is going to go from $40 to $35 an hour. Security, if needed, would be $45 an hour. And then any surcharge fees, the bottom right-hand side, you'll see the reduction in some of those areas. So this was based on, the last meeting there was, first of all, there was an initial policy. Then the board tried to update the policy again, which folks were still concerned about. So the board continued to work on this. And again, I'll speak for them. The goal was not to incur any type of profit. The goal was to try to look at any areas where the district is actually expending funds and break even. So that being said, I'll turn it over to the board. Any discussion on the current recommendation on the policy?
Good, Sam.
I'd just like to clarify, Dr. Gross, when you were reading that, there's a little asterisk with the Class D that goes down to point to the blue under Class D in paragraph part in the middle. It does talk about the hourly rate being applied at 50% for those that use a minimum of 100 hours during the course of the school year. And you're reading that in conjunction with Class C. That's what I was hoping to see, that it was going to be for both those classes. So I want to clarify if that, how you're to read that Class C would get that same reduction.
That's my understanding. Board members can speak.
Because then with the new blue rates, they cut in half for those groups that use 100 hours or more.
Yeah, those that use the most.
Or most of the groups that are here sitting
Sort of cut that
See.
way down. I know that was the board's goal.
So the softball field, your youth girls softball team, right? And the Class C rate is currently $15 an hour. You're saying if that organization were to book more than 100 hours parental time on the field, their hourly rate would drop to $17.50.
Right.
It's one.
That was the discussion with the board.
Yeah, that's not what.
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to put the asterisk there.
That's not what's here.
I have 4 questions, I guess.
Did you say that's not what's here?
Yeah, because there's no
A little high.
We need to add that, right?
That's what sounded to say. She was actually clarifying that it should be there. Little asterisk, I think it's the end.
Yeah, it's pointing up. It's probably not the greatest spot.
It's not there because I wasn't sure at the time when I was putting this together, because after looking at these rates, especially on the outdoor facilities, because those are break-even rates on those Class C on the outdoor facilities. So I was not sure if that was going to apply to those rates because they were
actual break even, when the other rates on D are not, they're obviously a much higher rate. So we can certainly use that same, language that we have in D and apply that to C if that's what we want.
With the bulk hour usage.
If there's no bulk hour usage offering, then this policy is still a detriment to the children of our community, is my concern. First of all, I'm not sure why we're continuing 75% of active membership of Mars School District when I would reckon that Mars Soccer, Mars Baseball, Mars Lacrosse have a 90% of Mars residency usage of those facilities versus 75%. And then my secondary question is, where do the leases fall into this right now? I know we currently have a lease regarding Adams 1 and 2 with Mars Baseball. I'm not sure when that expires, as well as a lease with Mars Soccer. They would not be affected by this policy. Where does that fall into this?
Better than only class B, except for be granted for a lease agreement.
Pre-existing lease.
Pre-existing.
You don't wanna be doing leases.
What is our plan regarding leases moving forward? Because I think it's only fair for those organizations to be aware of what the board's plan is regarding the use of these fields when their leases expire.
We have 2 existing long-term leases. I believe it would be our intention and our legal obligation to stay true to those. I don't know when I'm trying to find my clock, I couldn't find it today, when the lease on Berkshire Field expires. That would be 5 years or so. I don't know the answer to that. But I did look up for the soccer field. I believe it's 2039. Is that right, Aaron? That one was, the original lease was established as part of the acquisition of the property for court order, and then it was extended for an additional 10 years back, I guess, maybe 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. So with some an investment from soccer club. So that one I believe is really, really long term. I don't think that this board or even the next board or maybe even the board after that is going to be in any position to answer that. But with all of our leases, whether it be the youth baseball lease or with the youth soccer lease, there is always a termination notice built in because it is district property, it is taxpayer funded property, and if the district needed to use those assets for different purposes, then we would always have the right to be flexible there with some communication and coordination. But at this point, at least as far as I know, there is no other desired uses for those facilities or those assets, and I assume that we would just continue to stay compliant with the agreements.
Here's the thing, right here in this though, in 2039, I don't want to be sitting here and having Mars Soccer getting $80,000 bill like Mars Baseball day. And that's my fear of the passing of this policy, is unless we can be sure that these bulk hour rates are going to have a long-term sustainability for our community organization, we're going to run the risk of our kids not being able to afford to play here at Mars. I don't want to sit here and have our fields sitting empty because our kids have to pay Pine Richland to utilize field. These are taxpayer paid for field. These are investments made by our community. So not just Mars students, kids who attend home school or private charter or private school utilize field. Kids who haven't matriculated to the school district. I think kids as young as 3 can play soccer. And we need to be very, very conscientious of that when we're looking at these types of things. Because it seems like we're cutting these rates, but what we have to remember is a lot of these rates were 0 prior to 2020. So no matter what, this is an increase for organizations such as basketball, Boy Scouts, things like that.
There's lots to have. I mean, for me personally, we received so much information on this from other people have done so much research and administration to give us information about their school districts. We have to do what's best here, but when you look at those other school districts, when we cut this in half, and it's written right here in the policy, these are the rates, and it's cut in half, and that's what it would be until there would be a change. And I wouldn't expect that hopefully there wouldn't be a change for some long time, but when you look at cutting these in half, it is very comparable to the least amount of charge, even if that up to, yeah, and that's what we're doing, and that's what I'm seeing, that's what I expect to have passed.
I was expecting to see. Because again, those costs are going to trickle down to parents. All of a sudden, you're going to see increased rates for every single community activity your kid is a part of. In order to be a part of it, to pay it.
Yeah, and that's why the discount is important, I think, for those groups. Those are feeder groups into our organizations to get up into the district. So
so I'm just gonna be devil's advocate here a little bit. So, don't remember we're talking about Class C groups. These are not Class A groups, which are school district teams. These are not Class B groups. I'm sorry, I can either breathe or talk, right? So I have one more, so I'm doing the best I can, okay? Class B groups would be for organizations that exist solely to support the school team. So that would be sort of for booster groups that are created from high school parents supporting high school teams, PTO supporting elementary students, Mars Planet Foundation. So those would be Class B groups. You have to sort of read under the definitions of the organizations. Then we get into Class C. Class C always seems to be the promise, because everything everybody said here is actually 100% true. There's nothing that's untrue about that. We all pay taxes. We all want our kids to be outside and play games and have fun and be involved in things that make them healthy and well. That's all very, very true. But these are Class C groups. But our facilities, our mission here at the district, of course, is education and providing a well-rounded program. The facilities that we have, whether they be a classroom or a field, exist to support our school teams, right? If we did not have a baseball team, we probably wouldn't have a baseball field. And in some cases, we don't have a pool, but we provide for a pool. So we provide for our teams one way or the other. Because we have invested taxpayer money in order to do that, we work hard to make the fields accessible to the local community groups, to our kids, right? However, they are not, those teams and those organizations are not directly affiliated with the school, right? We are not, say, a township. We're not Adams Township, we're not Middlesex Township, where some of their primary responsibilities are to provide recreation and amenities. That's what the township is, that's part of their mission. So this is why the policy exists. You can make the case that the school district should make this accessible and affordable, and we certainly don't want our fields empty and we don't want our kids sitting at home. But you also have to understand that not all of our kids are involved in baseball or soccer or even the Boy Scouts. Some of them are in karate. Nobody's underwriting it. The school district is not making a contribution to the local karate school to make sure that those registration fees are accessible. Our kids are not, what if your kid is a dancer? Right? That's an extracurricular for what we did Class C, student or somebody in the district, a youngster who's not affiliated with the school team. Nobody's asking the school district to make a contribution to the dance. My kids played soccer. They played cup soccer. I didn't ask the school district to make a contribution to my family, to my kids' soccer club, so that it was more affordable for them. What I'm saying is our kids need to make it accessible. And I think that's the whole spirit of what Megan said and what Sally said. They need to be affordable, but there is a cost to the district to provide that. We're trying very, very hard, and with great appreciation for Debbie Branstead, our new business manager, coming in to find the actual costs. And hold that thought, because I have something I want to say about that in a minute. But we are taking a really, really hard look at recouping our costs. We're not looking to make a profit. We're not looking to gouge anybody or to do anything. We're trying to make them accessible. We're trying to make it fair. We're trying to make the fields accessible. But you have to remember that what we have is not the only thing that's available. And by making the case that we're the only game in town isn't right, because there are other kids whose families pay taxes, and we're not underwriting somebody's karate class.
Well, they could use the gym tickets for them.
They could take it, right? But not everybody in every single instance is going to use this district facility. These are extracurricular activities for students who are participating in a program that is not directly affiliated with the school district. I know free is everybody's favorite thing. I get it. Everybody wants it to be free. Everybody wants it when they want. I get that. And there are a lot, but people want nice things, and there are costs to that. And in order to keep it nice and to have the district recoup its costs, there are some fees. And we are working really, really hard. Well, not we, Debbie is working really, really hard to really get down to the granular level of what it costs the district to maintain these facilities. Now, I will also say, built into that is, oh, Debbie, help me with the term, but is the depreciation, right? Or contract, right, of a turf field. On average, a turf field lasts 8 to 10 years. It costs hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to put in and or replace a turf field. Some of these costs are part of that depreciation, because at some point, we're going to need to replace those turf fields for our school teams.
Every 8 years.
Every 8 to 10 years,
Or
right?
quarter time.
We're gonna have to replace those fields, okay? And if we don't do that for our school teams, then they're also not going to be available for our youth teams. So what I'd like to propose, and this was something that we had talked about at a very high level, there is a restricted capital improvement line that was created a couple of years ago where, just a little bit in the weeds, but where any budget excess, if you will, that's in the athletic fund, not in the general operating budget. I know everybody, right? This is the athletic fund. And there's a companion piece that came along later in the activities fund. You see, approve the Mars High School athletic fund. That's not the general operating budget. Everybody understand, we're talking about something different. These are funds that exist to basically pay referees, and take ticket, change for ticket booth, and ticket revenue goes in there and all kind of rolls up, and it's very specific what it's used for. If at the end of the year there is an excess in those funds, per policy, and I have them in stack paper, 618.1 and 618. At the end of a school district fiscal year, any excess funds are rolled over into restricted capital funds. And currently, I think we have just over $100,000, I think, in those. We have, over the last couple of years, paid for some cycle replacements for uniforms. I know we paid the band uniforms out of there. I think we're going to be, it's been recommended that we use some of those funds to replace some musical instruments, things like that. It's a nice way of taking funds that were generated through the activities and the athletics, rolling it back into a restricted fund, so those funds go back out to support those programs going forward. I would like to suggest that we add to these policies that we take any rental fees from the acquired through Class C and Class B groups, and we, just like we do here with the excesses in these funds, if there are any, not every year, sometimes there's a lot, sometimes a little, it just depends, that we start rolling those fees as they come in to this capital improvement fund for athletics and activities, so that we start building up a nest egg for replacement of our facilities as needed. That way, while the fees may not be free, at least you can perhaps feel a little bit more positive about it, knowing that it is going to help underwrite the sustainability of those facilities, and perhaps even do something new going forward. So, but because if we don't do that, or some version of that, then we're going to have to replace those facilities anyway. And we would do that not because the youth programs needed them. We would do that because the school programs needed them, and we make them accessible to the youth programs. So that is the spirit of what we're trying to do here. I know it's not free. I know people would love to hear that it's free, but there are costs. And if we can maybe channel those fees into a place where they can produce an outcome for the future, start building up a nest egg, so that we can continue to have nice things into the future. So I would like to make that recommendation for these policies as well.
Even to that point, to your point, the blue and the existing black in the column where Debbie had made the changes, those are our recuperation costs, bare bones recuperation costs. If it is just for the field, and if we cut that in half, as we're talking about here for the Class C and the Class D use over $100, we're not even recuperating the costs. We understand, like that's what when Steele's point here, we're trying to make it as affordable as possible, but still recoup some for the use that's going to be
on those fields and those facilities. So, and I will tell you, because I was part of this, we kind of got bounced off our game. Our policy, our use of facilities policy, for many, many years was based on the premise of recouping our costs to some degree. We didn't change the fees in those policies for years, so costs kept going up, and we kept those fees low, in some cases zeros, for many, many years. When we put in the turf fields, they were very affordable, if you will, and we had people coming from everywhere using those fields. We were the cheapest game in town. I know you know that, right? We were the cheapest game in town, and people were coming all over the place. The previous administration had made a recommendation that this was an opportunity we had a demand, if you will, and raise the cost to be competitive with the surrounding areas. We've learned a lot about that since then, and we kind of got bounced off our game. We kind of got bounced off our game in terms of what the premise was of the policy that worked for so many years. We accepted that recommendation and just, supply and demand economics, right? So when the cost went up, demand went down, and then it created a whole lot of other problems. So we are trying to get back to zero, get back to where we started, but we're also trying to right size it and right time it for the cost that exists today. The cost that existed 15 years ago might not still be the same cost as they were. So and Debbie, she's worked really, really hard on this, to do a granular analysis of what it actually costs, including depreciation in some cases. The cost, if you have to have a person there, a school district employee there, it is actually the real-time costs, and sometimes had to go up, and those may have to change from year to year, because those costs, with every contract, with everything that comes up, those costs go up every year. So, but I think the rental rates are in pretty good shape. Those should remain flat, I think, for at least for a little while, and we'll have to take a look at the staffing. But this is getting back to the premise of making the fields accessible to our tax-paying residents, not to make a profit, but to recoup our costs. Hopefully we can channel those dollars into an nest egg. That would be great, so we can sustain and continue to have nice days. And then the analysis would show that these are the actual numbers, not any more, not any less. This is what they are. So
On that point, just a couple things I'd like to share from my experience of re-looking at these policies and mistakes. We do know that the data that was collected by the district, what I learned from the last meeting we had last week, was that data was collected 3 years ago. And at that time, when that data was collected from districts such as Pine Richland, Seneca Valley, North Allegheny, there was no waiver for local community groups. And it wasn't until this issue surfaced again, and that other bill was sent out to the baseball organization that somebody else brought forward, that since the original data was collected 3 years ago, those districts either have put a $5 fee in or have waived those fees for an organization that consists of 98% of residents for different districts. So North Allegheny has a 98% requirement. Everybody on that organization, that youth organization, or nonprofit organization has to be North Allegheny resident, 98%, not 75. So like Megan, I'm a little confused as to where that 75% figure comes from. This is the different organization folks that I've spoke with in the Mars area have all committed that they have at least 95% or greater participation from Mars area school district students. And I understand the importance of seeing why they need to see majority students in this district, because it's the taxpayers in this district that are paying tax dollars that go towards these facilities. So Pine Richland implemented something very similar, and Seneca Valley does something a little bit different, but again acknowledges fee in exchange for maintenance of certain facilities being waived or lowered. And many of these fees are zero for Seneca Valley, zero for Pine Richland, zero for North Allegheny, or $5 for Richland, for community sports, because we don't want to bankrupt youth sports organizations, We do want to provide a place for all students to have the ability to play, especially at the younger grades, so the opportunity to work on teamwork and exposure to different sports and feel part of the community. My understanding is that there are over 80 girls in youth girls basketball. I think the fee for that was somewhere between $5 to $18 an hour. Now being proposed to go to 35, and now we're back down to $7.50. I guess I'm not really even sure based on the way this is written. So, okay.
I think she was talking about the.
I don't understand it, but either way, there are 80 girls, 130 boys playing, those parents today, those 80 girls are paying somewhere between around $225. They have to increase it significantly for a child to play for a season. And if you have multiple children, that's a lot of money to be paying for someone who has multiple children. It just seems like a lot to be asking. And these other districts, since we originally collected the data, have seen the writing on the wall and they've realized that you need to offer a rate that's more reasonable. And it's not just the youth sports organizations, it is Sports Scouts too, which has been affected. They reached out and they told us that they were affected by this policy as well. These are nonprofit organizations. They're financed by volunteers. They collect the money for insurance, uniforms, and equipment. And while I fully understand that our community, unlike the others surrounding us, North Allegheny, Pine Ridge, Seneca Valley, they do have a YMCA in their community. They do have a community center that they can fall back on. But even still, those youth organizations in those communities have been able to work with their school district to make sure that their facilities are still available to the students that are in their district. And it's disappointing to me that we would take a motion or approve something tonight that is adverse and could adversely affect
We're not
youth
approving,
programs in our area.
we're not approving any.
I think it's important to note too, who feeds the school district teams? You don't just come into ninth grade playing basketball. You've played it for years, and that's how you become a player at the school district. Not to mention, I've heard you mentioning the cost of replacing the turf on the mat. If your child plays baseball, they won't play on that mat. So the fees from Adams 1 and 2 going to pay to returf the mat don't necessarily make sense in this whole grand scheme of things.
And there are plenty of children in this district that will never step foot on football fields, but their parents are paying taxes to go and fund those facilities. There are plenty of students in this area that won't touch you but step foot on the baseball field or on the lacrosse field, but their parents are still paying. And what I'm hearing is we're going to go ahead and raise some fees or adjust them and then funnel that money back into the maintenance of the facilities that do need additional turf and do need upgrades made to them. So not only are the parents paying the first time around for school taxes, but if the children want to play a youth sport, they're going to pay again on a field that their child might or might not ever use in high school. I struggle with that.
I just want to say one thing really quick as I'm trying to wrap our heads around everything you're saying. And I appreciate what you're saying. When Debbie was doing the numbers, Debbie, you did take each of these rates for the maintenance of that particular field or facility, correct? So all this, we have the funnel of the money, however this is done, would be to maintenance whatever field is being used. Because if you look at the rates, for instance, the MAC has turf, but some of these fields have, it's all the other maintenance of the field, so dirt bringing in, whatever it is, the cost that she went through. She went through individually. So it wouldn't be that people aren't on the MAC and they're paying, but they're paying whatever field they're on.
Right, but we're also talking about funneling those fees, but what I heard Dale say is funneling the fees that are generated through.
But it would be for all of me. I believe it'd be for, well, I guess it'd be for the MAC, then we have the fees no matter where it's coming from, your school,
I never heard that,
and that's something to understand, I
Yeah,
guess.
that would be really
for all of us.
important.
You need to understand that we run the athletics and the activities as a program. And it is a line item in the budget. They are funds that support multiple sports and multiple activities. So it's not like this dollar goes in the football bucket and this one goes in the Boy Scout bucket and this one goes in, but we run it as a program.
Well, and one other question to your point, Christine, is you have Seneca in there, but the other school districts for Allegheny County. I'm just curious if you did price out. I called a bunch of Butler districts and no one has gotten back to me. I noticed 3 days ago. Because on the website, you can't always get all the information that you found. Because on the website, it says Pine Ridge and you pay $5 and $10. But there's, certain schools have different agreements. We don't have as big a tax base as some of those Allegheny school districts that may be able to discount more than maybe we can. So that's something to keep in mind for everybody here. And actually, I'd like to have more information if you're bringing that forward to the Butler School Districts, Knox, Armstrong, Montauk, like those type of districts to understand how they're doing and how they're pricing. I did put calls in that haven't heard back, but that's where I'm more curious because the tax base is very different. We're trying to make these so reasonable, but I understand what's being said. It's just, it's tough. I mean, when you're trying to wrap your head around it, there's a lot to take into consideration. It really
The
is.
challenge for me, Sally, was that we were willing to take 75% participation rate of district students from the Pine Ridge Lane,
I don't think that
Policy.
matters.
but we weren't able to take dollar amount from Pine
Well,
Ridge.
I think that first of all, the dollar amount is $10 and $15 for a lot of their facilities. All of their gymnasiums are $10. In addition to that, they have a site manager fee. I have policy right here. I spoke to the business manager last week. It's $10 for their gymnasiums, plus the site manager fee of $35 per hour for classes 2, 3, and 4. So it's not $5 for the gymnasiums. I'm not sure where you have that information, but it is $10 for their gymnasiums. Some of their other fields are 15. Baseball fields are $10 per hour for that class 2. That is their 75% nonprofit. But there is, as I mentioned, there is a site manager fee that is in addition to that fee of the $10. And that is $35.
I'm looking at the policy that's.
This is on their website. This is
So this is the front, and here's the second page. On the back, it says class 3 for profit, class 2.
And they say right off their website.
And class 2 shows for like a football field or a gym, $5 an hour.
But no, this is,
Well, I don't know, I do have different copies, because mine says $5 an hour.
I got this off the website today and I spoke with the business manager on Friday. They don't know.
One thought, not that I'm advocating one or the other, these may want $5, they might have wanted $50, but just to take a step back for a minute, all of this money, wherever it comes from, whatever costs it takes to maintain anything in this district, whether it's offset by some of these fees or it's not, and we decide to make it zero, we're still going to have to maintain the facility. You're still going to have to replace the turf at some point, and all of that money comes from your tax money, one way or the other, whether you paid in the fee, whether you paid in taxes. If we don't have enough money to repair it, we raise taxes. So it's not school district money, it's our money. It's all our money, you're all taxpayers. Every dollar that gets spent out of one bucket or the other. So just keep in mind, the money's coming from somewhere, and it's coming from your tax dollars one way or the other. Whatever we decide to do, I'm not advocating one or the other, it's all fantastic points. But nobody's taking money from somebody else and spending somebody else's money. It's all our money, and it's all ultimately one big bucket that comes from one big place. So everybody here is paying for whatever we decide. Just something to keep in mind.
Any other board discussion? So what we're gonna do is we're gonna post this. Oh, we already did post it. Does anyone want to make any changes? Is there something that's,
We have to fix that hat on the C class, John, and
Is
make
that what
sure that's
everybody wants,
clear under that
everybody wants
C.
that 50% to apply to C as well? Or the all districts, I think it's reasonable, because then it gets it, because it seems that most of the concern is for the high usage groups, that when you get 100, 200 hours, and some of these groups are gonna get that, when you have that many.
I hope most would, I would hope most of it.
They're gonna get that.
Yeah, the one that they fixed it, I would think 100.
I just have one
It'll
question.
be basketball and wrestling, like for a while. So
They hit that.
And we'll hit that.
That was my question. Do most of the stakeholders here that are most interested in this, are they going to be able to hit that number?
Okay.
Because if it's 80 is the number, then we'll make it 80.
Right.
You know, I get the spirit of what we're trying to do. We do want to service the majority of the groups. What we don't want to do is miss one of our important groups over 10 hours.
Right.
That's hard.
Very good,
So,
So my only concern with the 75% is that you're going to have people make for-profit businesses that will be able to fall into class B if they don't have, they have 75% bars versus you community organizations that would in turn have 9% bars.
You have to be nonprofit, C.
Yes,
Nonprofit. We can up that, if we want, we can up that.
I think
Most of them are.
I think change 75 to 90% of the minimum and have it be during the duration of the season, not just.
that's actually more restricted, aren't You're talking about being more restricted than we are now. By raising it to 75, to try to match Pine, you're actually making it more restricted.
I'm saying raise it from 75 to 90 because they should be, the majority of the folks using this facilities, if we're going to go based on the fact that we want district residents who have already paid taxes to build these facilities and continue to finance them, then they should be comprised, the majority of them, as district.
I would disagree with
That's
you.
the thought, so I don't care if we wanna make it worse for you.
I would also like to hear from community members before we decide if we want to make changes or not regarding some of this. Specifically, are you an organization that you feel you have 90% of them?
So, another board comment, question, talk right now, because we are scheduled for a 7 o'clock regular meeting, just so everyone's aware. There was 2 people that signed up to speak on public comment first. It was Brett Schultz, was the first person that requested, so is Brett Schultz available?
No.
You have the baseball thing for it, I'm not sure.
Yeah, so he was the first person who requested. Aaron is the second, yeah, Aaron Best is the second person. So, if you could just state your name, your address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, sure. Aaron Best, 204 Pinnacle Court, Valencia, PA, 16059. Thank you for giving me some time this evening. I have been involved with our local Cub Scout pack since 2014, and we have always paid a nominal fee for the use of the cafeteria. It was $10 an hour, and now we're looking at almost tripling that cost. And I just feel like that is, there's no justification for that. I know that in this meeting tonight, they've discussed reasons for why they feel like the raise is justified. However, I'm not sure I'm quite understanding. I know the one board member mentioned that, if you're charging these fees, you're building a nest egg for, future, cost overruns and charges. I'm not sure I understand how you build a nest egg if you're only charging for what it costs the school to have us open. We're in there for 2 hours once a month. The custodians are already in there. It's in the evening. I understand that we have to pay a small fee, but tripling that cost is just really without any explanation. Maybe the electric went up much more expensive. I don't know. But it just doesn't seem like it's justified. And then I also kind of feel like, the school district was happy to take both the Girl Scouts donating the Gaga Ball pits at the Centennial School that are used every day by those kids. And also a couple of years ago, an Eagle Scout built the Buddy Bench at the Mars Elementary School, and the district's happy to accept those projects on behalf of those organizations, yet they're asking us to pay 3 times as much as we have in the past to rent the facilities. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Can I make a clarification?
Yes,
So, I'm sorry if I was not clear, and I know there's a lot of nuts and bolts to this, and not everyone coming to this conversation with the same context. My point is that it's not necessarily, what currently exists today is that through the athletic and activity fund at the end of the year, which is a culmination of a variety of sports and a variety of activities through it's fine. Not specific activities, but the overall balance of a line item. Those get rolled over if there is extra at the end of the year. It's not everybody's specific rental every single day, every single minute of every day. It's the balance at the end of the year. So that already exists today. It has for, 5, 6, 7 years. It's been around for a while. What I'm suggesting as an additive measure is that regardless of whether you're paying a $10 fee or $30 or $100 fee, whether you're a Class D, that's they're a little bit higher. That we instead of take those revenues and put them roll them into this account. So it's sort of a second source for this fund. So it is not, and I think what Christine was saying is that, well, if they're going over here, then they're not going into the general operating budget. And I did ask Debbie that question, and Debbie, the answer was, is what's the impact to the general operating budget if the rental fees, whether you be a Class C or a Class D, or redirected? Is it a significant impact to the budget? No. Okay. So what it would do then, it would just sort of, when the time came to replace something, lots of kids won't ever wear a band uniform, but we have also, we pay for the band uniforms, which were very expensive, out of that fund. We pay for things over the years. So it would be just a secondary source of revenue for that particular fund that goes to offset the inevitable cost of running those programs, which are good.
So what you said is that it just ensures the dollars that are spent on activity fees are used back for activity. That's very, a high level summary of it.
That's exactly right. So it just.
Not all, but yeah, whatever, yeah.
So it's not like it's a new concept, it's simply, the original concept has been in place for many years. I am just suggesting that we take these and add, and give it as a secondary source. That's all. So I'm sorry if I was not clear on that. I hope that explains it a little better. I'm not sure that it did, but I tried.
Really quickly curious to Aaron Best's question, if there are any groups besides the Boy Scouts or these 90% or 75% groups that fall into Class C or nonprofits that would, that would exist, where we couldn't just make a flat discounted rate for that Group C class. I don't know if that's possible, if there's anybody making a profit there for any reason, like a tournament or something. There may be a different way to word this where you can, if there's only one or two outlying groups that still fit every other category except for the hourly, the bulk hourly amount. I'm just looking, I'm thinking maybe that's the only group that would be an outlier here. I don't know. I'm just looking when we're trying to think about changes. That's something we could consider, maybe a different wording for the C class. To say, unless someone is using it for things like a tournament or something that could make some money, that they would fall into this category and get that cut rate. I mean, D makes sense to me, but for the C, you don't want to see someone like the Boy Scouts being the only group left out of a discount just because of the hours they're using. That's just my personal little caveat to think about.
I would agree with Sally. When I look at the list, I think that they're going to discount C, discount everyone. C.
Well, that would be the answer, is you just discount period.
90% or
Unless they would be doing, and I would agree, because the bulk of users are the higher utilization, but there are a few that have just a small amount of usage. So it would be nominal.
They wouldn't have to track hours.
It's so hard.
Exactly, because there would be a lot of time spent tracking that, and what if someone, because we had talked previously about having to schedule separately and do some scheduling and just the managing of scheduling, and how would we track that to, if someone has rainouts or those types of things, and they commit to 100, so it would be a matter of tracking. It would be quite a undertaking administratively, I think. So if you're going to do the discount for those users, there are just a few, I think, especially upping it to the 90%.
Right.
I think you could then just apply that discount to everyone in the city. And unless there's a tournament or some sort of fundraising activity, and then I would suggest that you use the rates that we have listed here for those activities, would be my suggestion, because they are charging, that's a fundraiser. So, that would be a suggestion you could do for that spot.
Leave the discount for D in place.
Yeah, that would stay the same. That makes sense there.
Yes. There's fewer people that reach 100 hours in class.
Right. I'd like to try to get some public comment.
Yeah.
So we'll start with in-room. Does anyone wish to have public comment? So just say your name, address.
Nadine Christie at 104 Valley Brook Drive. Just right off the bat, I do have a question and clarification for the custodian fee. Usually that was charged on a weekend. Is that still the same? I'm sorry if I missed it in the policy.
Yes, that would be when there would be someone.
So it's still how it's always been. Okay. And so when you talk about discounting it or the 50% or whatever you might do, does that affect that fee as well? The custodian fee?
Great question. No. That I was. That is a direct payment for them.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is right. That is the fund. I mean,
And that's what we're paying for that person to come in on a day that they wouldn't normally be there.
That's a great
That's my
question.
thought. That's throwing it out there.
It's 50% of the rental fee.
Just the rental fee, okay. And if I can I speak now on behalf, I'll stand up, I feel bad.
It's your 3 minutes, however you want to do it. You got 2 left.
As I said, I'm Nadine Christie, and I am involved with both the boys and the girls youth basketball programs. And I wrote you guys a letter, and I hope some of you had a chance to read that. And something that I did forget to mention in that letter that's been brought up a lot tonight is in order to participate in both the boys and the girls basketball programs, the youth basketball programs, you have to live in the Mars Area School District. Matter of fact, in the girls, I know their bylaws a lot better. I've worked with them a lot over the years. It's clearly written in our bylaws. You have to live in the school district. So I'm not sure about everybody else's, so I don't want to speak on behalf of any other organization. And then the only other thing that I want to add on when you guys think about this policy and whatever you guys choose to do. This year with basketball, we had like a little sneak peek in how much the Mars gyms mean to our programs and how much we need them. Because of COVID, we weren't allowed in any of the schools. So we were so grateful and thankful we were able to use the gym over in Wexford. And it was really expensive. So because it cost so much, we had such limited gym time for our programs. And we made the best of it, but the girls, I know on their side, we weren't even able to offer the 2nd and 3rd graders our in-house program. We didn't even get to have it for them. And we had so many inquiries, and it was horrible for us as a board to have to keep on telling them no. And with the boys, because it was so expensive, we were cramming 2 teams in a practice, like just trying to get the most of it. And we made it work, and it wasn't ideal, but I just want you guys to truly realize how that increased fee truly impacts our programs. And when I say the programs, I mean the kids. So, I mean, just keep that, and we're not, and I speak for basketball, we're not here to ask for the facility for free. It never has been free to our associations, and that's not what we're asking for. Our thing is, we just want to keep it how it's been. I know girls have been in existence for about 10 years, and our registration fee has not changed. The only thing that has changed is maybe the cost of uniforms, but sometimes uniforms are handed down with siblings. So our cost to play has not changed. And we just want to hold on to that. And I think that some of you who probably have kids who have gone through the school, and some of you maybe who still have little ones who truly aren't in it, whereas I'm kind of like right smack in it right now. I have 1 that's left youth programs and 2 that are still in it. And you honestly, you want to stay within the Mars community sports programs or as long as you can, because the second that one of your kids comes to you and is like, can I work with this trainer, or I really want to join this club team, or whatever it might be, it's so expensive. So I think I just truly hold on to, we just want to keep the finances for basketball at least. We just want to keep it the same. That's all we're asking for. Thank you.
Just one quick question.
Yeah.
And I apologize, maybe somebody else knows this because this has changed so many times, I could not go back and find the original one. What were you paying for the?
So we take $17 an hour.
Oh, it goes up to 15 then.
Right.
You better be better.
Right, we pay 30 for the custodian.
Oh,
So we're up to
so-
35 now, but I mean,
You might be able to work out, yeah.
right,
Okay,
right.
all right.
That's good. So thank you for like clarifying, like right off the bat, when you clarified your fee with all. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Excellent. Good.
I think we're gonna squeeze, looks like 1 more in, so, go ahead, state your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Aaron Woolerton, I'm 207 Hook Street in the borough, and obviously I'm here on behalf of the soccer club. Just 2 points that I wanted to make sure that everybody is, actually, I guess maybe one is a question. The first one is I think a lot of the concern and tension that you're seeing is, as you guys are probably well aware of, athletic facilities in our area right now are at a ridiculous premium. Speaking on the part of soccer, lacrosse, field hockey, organizations like that, there are 8 multi-purpose fields in the Mars Area School District. 4 of them are owned by the school. Others are being talked about coming online, but those are years out. And every single one of us, soccer, lacrosse, all of those multi-purpose field users are cramped for space. And there's a pretty strong probability that some of that space is going to be going away in the near future. which is only gonna make all of our difficulties that much more keenly felt. So I appreciate you guys working through this because, yes, Seneca has Grand Park and North Boundary Park. Pine has Richland Park and Pine Park. We don't have those opportunities here. Now, the soccer club, as well as a couple of the other organizations, we're working with Middlesex Township, we're working with Adams Township, we're working with the borough, we're trying to get those facilities to come online. But it's 2, 3, maybe 5 years out minimum before we're gonna be able to start playing on these kinds of facilities. Secondly, Sally, I believe that you mentioned it, and Debbie, that you're the best one to answer this question. Do you guys look into the cooperative agreements that some of the other community athletic organizations have with the school districts, with the municipalities?
That's what I called, but they haven't, no, it's, I mean, honestly, Aaron.
If I can answer-
Just me, but
I have.
I'm trying to research too, so.
I've reached out to all my sister clubs, so if anybody would like information on what those agreements look like for school districts and the communities, whatever, I have pages of notes and I'd be happy to help out.
I just
Whatever
thought I only
information
wanted
makes
to
sense.
know on my own for coming to a meeting and would share if I got it. I didn't.
Because a lot of them, there's no sense in us trying to reinvent the wheel.
Sure.
When others, especially again, like Seneca, which is a much bigger organization, and has a much more difficult time managing these things, they figured out a solution that works for them. So there's gotta be at least good ideas there that we can take on and make our lives easier to try to sort out.
And I appreciate that, Aaron, but the one thing too, is each district's so different too, like with the tax
Absolutely.
base and with the
Exactly,
facilities that they have to manage.
So there's
So
probably
we're
some
gonna
best practices there that we can pull it.
just to get some idea of what's out there, but at the beginning, to look at what we, personally have to be able to manage it.
Find the pieces that work for us and avoid maybe some of the mistakes that they've made.
Maybe trying to get all that.
Thank you. That kind of concludes, we didn't have much time for public comment because we have another public meeting at 7:00. Are we just gonna revisit this again?
You can have public.
Debbie, myself, and we'll get together, try to make tweaks that we think will capture the conversation, and then send something out again, and then you can take another look at it.
What might make sense, when we do this sort of a quick from waive the 30-day posting, maybe the best next step would be to put our best foot forward, and then post it for 30 days for public comment, and then get some feedback from there.
To keep it
I have to say, we post lots of things for 30-day public comment. It's silence is absolutely deafening. So, if you
This
have,
would probably be different.
yeah, well, you'd be surprised. But here, got some good feedback tonight. I think administratively, they could come up with something that reflects the spirit that we talk about here and sort of the concerns that, that come forward, I guess, where we are now. And then we post it, and then, but then maybe 30 days, you can have something final to move forward with, because this uncertainty is not good for anyone,
Can I have a motion to adjourn? 7 seconds. All in favor, aye? Aye. So the special meeting is adjourned.